Welcome to the R7 podcast, sponsored by M is Good. R7 is an innovative, God-inspiring process that explores personal and professional purpose. R7 analyzes 7 strategies to transform your vision and find direction in your organizational marketing. R7 establishes clarity and guidance for the gift we call life.
This is my destiny.
Welcome to the R7 podcast. On this podcast, we believe that the key to success lies in resetting your heart, mind, and life through the R7, the power of the R7 and faith-based testimonies. Today, we don't have a special guest. We have a special man of God, my sidekick, Mr. David Bennett. And we are going to get into it today because something really special happened to you that we're going to talk about. We're going to get into and really apply the R7 to your really special, awesome circumstance. So let's hear it, man. What happened?
Okay, before we get into this, I need to say something, though, real quick. So the last 2 weeks, we had Ron, who was, you termed, your best friend, your BFF. Last week was Steve Noble, which, if you haven't listened to that, was amazing.
Yeah.
And you said, Steve, you are like one of my best friends. Today, the introduction is, we really don't have a special guest. We got this trash here that we're going to talk about today, and we might learn something. Probably won't. You might want to hit fast forward, at least go 1.5 on the speaking rate so you can get through it as quick as you can.
That is not true. You are totally looking to that, but okay.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome.
You know, I really like, honestly, you are there for me in all the stuff that's happening in the world. And today I'm really like just thankful you're willing to talk about this special thing that happens, because this is real, man. This is life. This is authentic. It's something that happens to us or is going to happen to us at some point. So let's hear it, man. Like, what happened?
All right. All right. Well, yeah. Now to get serious, without further ado. So a few weeks ago, without a whole lot of warning or anything, our company decided to close 3 locations, 3 offices, if you will, that are out there. And in the midst of doing that, to downsize and trim a ton of cost and become more profitable, they chose to eliminate my position in the process. So it's one of those things where one day you show up, you're going to do the things you do, run your numbers, figuring out what you got to do for the day, that kind of thing. And then a few minutes later, after you find out they're in the elevator and they walk in and sit in your conference room, you don't have a job. And not only you, but the people in the office you're in don't have a job either. So, and then you're left trying to figure out what just happened. Now, I know some of our listeners are pastors. I don't know if that happens too often from a pastoral standpoint, but pastor person, it happens to the people that come to your church every week. And for me, it was something that, I really wasn't very prepared for. And it's definitely been the last few weeks kind of walking through some more valley type conversations, with people that are closest to me, Dave, you being one of them, and really trying to figure a lot of things out, because it pokes at some pieces of your mental and emotional side of yourself that you're not really ready to go after and not really ready to think about.
Yeah. So let's break this down. And as our audience knows, like, probably assumes, that we've had, conversations outside the podcast of where we're going to take this. And so this is where I feel like it's just real special for you to put yourself out there in a vulnerable place and talk about, this topic that could be something that's, embarrassing and whatnot. Yeah. And so, like, it's really cool for you to go there. But as a small business owner who's been doing this for 23 years, There are clients that leave us all the time.
Yep.
You know, there are clients that come in all the time. So you have these lows and these highs of, this is awesome. Like, we got this new client. And then, 6 months later, it's not so awesome and things aren't going well. And, clients fall off and, that rejection happens. And so, when you lose your income, when you call it a job, you lose your income, you have a part of your identity that gets taken away.
Yep.
Your ability to produce revenue, money, however you see it, whether you're, small business owner revenue or, it's your income as a W-2 employee. And so, regardless of the situation, it hits your identity. And let's talk about that for a second. And so, we have our mental, we have our emotional, we have our physical, we have our spiritual. So, when you say you weren't ready, was it you weren't ready financially, or because you're a seasoned Christian, man. I know the scripture, and I know you love God, and like
Yep.
God has prepared you. You're a seasoned warrior.
Right.
So, let's talk about where you landed: mental, emotional, physical, spiritual, financial. Like, how did
Yeah.
this attack you? How has it continued to attack you? And how are you coping?
So I think the first thing when you think about identity is you got to say, who am I? Right. And there's a couple things you can say. I mean, I can say I am a vice president that, is a child of God, loves people, is a dad, that kind of thing. Or you can say, I'm a child of God who loves and values people, is a father, and just so happens to be a vice president at a company, or former, I guess. And that's the biggest thing is asking that question, who am I? Because when you get too wrapped up in your identity from a vocational standpoint, you're right, it's fleeting.
Mhm.
It's not going to stay forever. And it is a mental battle because, even when it's, we love you, this is just a decision we have to make. We wish you the best. You're left Monday morning quarterbacking a lot of things. Could I have seen it? Could I have done something about it? What did I actually do wrong? Are they really being honest with me?
Mhm.
Did I remember one question I asked a couple weeks ago is just simply, who did I piss off? you know, what did I do? And, you're left wrestling with understanding that, and your friends help you see this too, is that you are not the sum of your vocational parts.
Yeah, that's good.
You know, you are by far first and foremost, if you're a born again Bible believing Christian, you are a child of God, who was put on this earth to do certain things for him that maybe no one else can do quite as good as you or whatever. Like you have a skill set, you have a gifting, you have passions, you have all these things. And so, but the identity piece takes a big hit because you have to get outside of the fact that, hey, is this who you are or is this what you do? And yeah, I mean, you're going to interview. I mean, I had a couple interviews today. I mean, you're going to interview for other jobs, but you've got to think through the fact that I bring I bring myself to the table, and at the end of the day, does it really matter what it says on my business card? Because is that really who I am?
Yeah.
I
So
mean,
what I
what
hear
I
you
do.
saying is what you do is not who you are.
Correct.
That's a
Correct.
big line. Whether you're a sports executive, whether you're an athlete, this is really prevalent in the sports industry, sports
Yep.
world. So like I'm a hockey guy. A lot of people know that. So like my TOI, my time on ice, that's what I do. What team I'm on, whether I'm in the NHL, AHL, OHL, USHL, NAHL, NCDC, USPHL, all these different leagues, there's always a step bigger, another ladder to go. And so if you really ride that, who I am is what I do, it's a really awful place to be.
It's awful, but it's so easy to be there.
Mhm.
I think I told you the story off air, but like my former company, we hired a guy in one of our offices, and he was a college basketball player, 6'8", 6'9", something like that. And we had hired him, And I sat down to talk to him just to meet him. And he said, yeah, he said, I had a deal when I got out of college to go play in Europe. And that was right when COVID went bonkers, which is, when you think about it, when we're recording this, it's right now, 4 years ago, like literally right now.
Mm.
And he's like, because of COVID, the whole thing fell through and I never got to go do that. And I was like, so what'd you do? I went and when I graduated and sold copiers. Gotcha. And then we had hired him to do, to work at our company. And I was like, so I got a question for you, because knowing what you just said, it's so prevalent in athletes too, is you grow up playing basketball. You're a basketball kid. It's what you do. Or a hockey player, or a soccer player, or a football player, whatever. It's what you do. It's who you are. And I said, so you're a basketball kid? He goes, yeah. And that was the track you were on, and it was taken away from you outside of anything you could have done. Correct. So how have you handled, I said, that shift in your identity? And he got real quiet, and he's like, no one's ever asked me that before. And I'm like, well, I got to imagine it's a pretty big deal, right? He goes, I think about it every day. Every day. I think about that. And he got kind of teary, and he said, it's a battle that I'm still fighting to this day. I just have never really talked to anybody about it before. And I was like, well, here's the deal. I'm like, I'm not trying to be that guy, but I said, there is a plan. There's a plan. And I said, but we need to work on transitioning that identity outside of what you do or who you were as a kid into the man that you are created to be now, so we can move forward. And it's funny, I had that conversation, Dave, because that was probably, 2 or 3 months ago. And now I'm having the same conversation with myself.
It's always interesting when it comes full circle. And, again, just being able to talk about this is pretty cool, because, rejection's a big deal, and getting rejected on what you think your identity is,
Yep.
by the world standards is tough. It's just tough. Like I like to say that life's about peaks and valleys, one day mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, you're on a peak, if that's even possible. I think there's degrees of peaks and valleys in your MEPS, your mental, emotional, physical, spiritual side of things. And so in that valley, that's really where we give glory to God on the peaks and the valleys. We know that God is a jealous God, that he wants us to glorify him in everything we do. And I've often said this before, and hopefully this resonates with you today, is that who would kill David Bennett to be in your valley?
Yeah.
So
good question.
Yeah, like just the stories coming out of Israel. I just heard of this one story where I wish I had a picture of this, but it's kind of like in Jerusalem, they have like these dugouts, these cement dugouts on the side of the street where, they hear the siren coming because the missiles are, coming across, and they run to sort of these dugouts. They're not in the ground, they're up, they're like concrete kind of dugout looking things. And so they had 40 people in there, just kind of the siren went off, so everybody ran to the dugout. And one of the Hamas terrorists went in there and threw a grenade with all these 40 people, and then just started shooting. And there was one person in the very, very back. She was protected because of all the people. And she had to live through that. Like, she was protected by the bodies of people. Like, it was just so incredibly hard to hear the story. She's given her testimony, I think last week or this week. But it's heart-wrenching, man. And you think about other places in the world that don't have the luxuries we have.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things I took home from Steve from last week is that, God is bigger than my doubt.
Absolutely.
And so, like, who would die to be in your valley?
Yeah.
And so you think about that, like, man, we live a pretty awesome life in our deepest, darkest valley. And, when you start thinking about perspective and just the blessings that we have, it's pretty awesome.
Well, and you think about today, the day that we're filming this is, when I woke up this morning, I saw the headline. You probably saw it too, with this whole deal that the Francis Scott Key Bridge in Baltimore went down and got hit by an ocean vessel. And that's my business, is logistics. And I sat there and I thought about all the people on the bridge. All of a sudden, the bridge goes down, and you see the footage. It's wild, but the bridge goes down, and you're in the water. Who knows how long you had to fall? It's a long way. Now you're in the water. Now you got to get out of your car, 47-degree water. You got to somehow swim through the wreckage of this bridge, which isn't easy. And then when you get out of that, you realize you're out in open water, man. You're going to have to find a way to swim all the way into shore or grab onto a piece of metal and wait for somebody to come out and get you. And then you're thinking about the ship captain who feels awful because you can see the thing loses power twice as it's trying to turn. All the crew on that vessel, you know, you talk about putting things in perspective. It's like, God, thank you that I'm not there, but please help and protect these people. Help them to find all the people that were on the bridge when it went down at 1:30 in the morning. But you're not wrong. I mean, there's perspective helps a lot. And, you know, it's one of those things where I put a post out on LinkedIn yesterday about the fact that for all of those people that were part of this with me, that you can choose to be bitter or you can choose to be better and to get better. And that's one of the things I want to encourage them to do is the bitterness will eat you from the inside. Make a conscious choice and be better. Because at the end of the day, did you want to be in that seat to make that decision? No, no one signs up to be in that decision. And there's not any ounce of arguing and grandstanding and sharing your own opinion that's going to change that, you know. And that has been a big help for me the last couple of weeks to just realize that, hey, you know, God's got this. This didn't surprise him. This is where we're going. There could be a much better opportunity out there in the future. Let's go through the process. But at the end of the day, think back of what happened and be better. You know, and as you alluded to from what Steve talked about last week, have a little bit of faith.
Yeah.
And believe that this isn't some random act of crazy. This is something that God allowed to happen to make all of us better. And it's easy to say when things are going right. It's not easy to say when they're going wrong. But, you know, as you know, again, one of the things we talked about last week is when you look at people in the Bible, it's easy to go to the next chapter, to turn the next page and see everything that God did to make it better. And it's when you're waiting for that page to turn that it's really hard. You know, because if you allow yourself to be in that spot of anger and grudge and bitterness, it will eat your lunch. And that's all you're going to talk about. And that's even how you're going to interview for your next job. And they're going to be like, wow, he's still really mad. And I'm like, I don't want to be that guy. I want to be able to see my friends that I made in my time there, the people we were able to help, the people and families we were able to impact by promoting the right people, giving their families a chance, you know, making some huge racial milestones there that we were able to knock down and do the right things, look back and be like, you know what, God, that was awesome. Thank you for allowing me to be a part of that.
Yes, let's
And
talk
now,
about that. Like your mindset moving forward, you know, how much are you dwelling on what happened versus where you're going?
Well, so here's the thing. You know, I am easily pouring myself into just let's find the next opportunity. Let's work the network and do all the things that you would think, you know, work LinkedIn, reach out to your friends. And by the way, your friends are never all going to be honest with you. That's the other horrible part of this. They're going to be like, I can't believe that happened. How could they do that to you? You're amazing. You're the best there has ever been. And you're like, yeah, maybe I am amazing. Yeah, maybe I am the best. And, you know, no one really knows. Well, yeah, you could have gotten better at this, and no one's going to tell you that. And so that's part of that kind of, you know, thinking through and grabbing on things you need to grab onto to figure out how to get better. But a lot of time is spent figuring out the next place. But I will tell you, you know, somebody, you know, the person, you know, the person that I'm with right now, she's trying to help me figure out that, hey, you can go and find your next job and be totally exhausted and burned through this whole process, or you can take some of your time, not all your time, but to do some self-care. Like, get some reading done, get some exercise done, take a walk, take some time to really spend some time in your thoughts so that when the next opportunity comes, you're invigorated, you're recharged, and you're ready to go. And that is something that I don't automatically go to. That is not a posture that I automatically hold. But I'm finding little by little as I give in to do that, that it actually is really helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we all need to
You
get better
know,
at that. That's for sure. Let me ask you this. I've said this to my employees here at M is Good. You're here as long as you are valuable. And so, if you're not valuable, I don't need you.
hmm
And so, and it's not me needing you; it's the business needs you to produce. And so when I think about, whether it's a job or whether it's a project or, a client, I'm not that I'm great at it, but like I'm
hmm
always looking for opportunities to be valuable, whether it's a thought, whether it's a strategy, whether it's an execution,
Yep.
whether it's assisting, is there anything you could have done to be more valuable to have prevented this? Do you kind of reflect on that at all?
Again, Monday morning quarterbacking happens, and wow, what a question to ask me. You all can tell he's my friend. Oh my gosh.
Friends
What
like
could I
me
have?
who needs enemies.
Right. I'm gonna kick you with this one. This is like trying to pull the hockey sweater over my head while we throw the haymaker in. No, I'm just kidding. I'm glad you asked the question. What could I have done to be more valuable? That's a great question. I tried to find, and maybe this is part of the answer. I tried to create and add value by the interactions I had with my direct reports, especially, but then their people as well, and say, how much value can I add? What can I do to help you get clarity in hard decision you're trying to make, or how to help you maybe address a client differently or build a solution differently. That was where I tried to add, a ton of value. Places I probably could have done better at in terms of adding value, maybe providing a little more guidance from a planning standpoint. I did, try to create a lot of metrics so we could catch trends and take advantage of trends and that kind of thing. Um, I don't know. My leadership style is very collaborative. It's not dictatorial whatsoever. I'm going to tell you what to do and that's what you do. Um, so I don't know. That's the tough part is, you know, should I have been way more aggressive and in their face about do this, do this, do this? I don't know, because that's just not that's not the style by which I lead in. It's really not. It's relating, it's listening, and it's doing a lot of things together, because I feel like if I can do something together with somebody, teach them how to do it, then they can do that and they can teach somebody else how to do it too.
You know,
So I
in
don't
in
know.
yeah, no, it's good. I think in the world of, organizations, whether they're providing value with their first time guests, whether they're trying to um, do any type of conversion digitally, whether it's top of the funnel, middle of the funnel, bottom of the funnel conversion, whether we're trying to reach new donors, trying to increase donor um, um, budgets, or giving, sorry, increased donor giving, for taking somebody from $10 to $100 annually. There's always a vision value proposition.
Yeah.
And so we look at, okay, what is it that they're accomplishing? Where's my money going?
Yeah.
And does that value exceed what I think I'm giving into it? And I think a lot of times employees fall in that space of like, okay, here's what I'm paying somebody to do, and here's how much revenue is contributing towards their salaries, or even bigger, here's the department that is, wow, it takes X amount of money to run this department. How much are they supporting or bringing in to justify this department?
Yeah.
And so I think in some conversations it's not really about the individual personalities. It could be that the department as a whole is not producing, there's
Yeah.
no value there, so therefore why do we need it? Let's see what happens. And so I think if you're listening out there, providing that value, whether you're organizational leader in what the organization is doing, or if you're, W-2 employee or even a contractor, it doesn't really matter. You're always looking to provide value. And, when it comes to R7, that's where that strategy comes in, that vision, that, destiny, vision, strategy, that's step 3 of, okay, what kind of exponential value can we give in this process and
Yeah.
in this experience? Several years ago, I wrote this Power of Thank You article, and I'll put it in the descriptions um, for everybody to read. It's super awesome. I spent about 6 months writing it, and really talks about the power of thank you. Used to be like, hey Dave, I've got this job that I need to do, and I pay you to do the job, and I say thank you. That's where we started in '90s, early 2000s. Now it's like, I don't see you, Dave, and like whatever process you put in place is my experience. So the power of thank you becomes a review. It becomes a
Mhm.
returned customer, a
Yep.
returned first time guest, second time guest. It becomes a member of the church. So the executive team has got to put in a VIP experience and think ahead. That's why I love psychology. Think ahead on the psychology side of things to really think about, how is the consumer interacting with my product, and is there enough value there for them to come back? And if the process isn't there, if the VIP experience isn't there, people just vote with their wallets and they vote with their feet. There is
Yeah.
no showdown in the middle of the street of you. Sometimes there is, but most of the time it's just like, what, I'm not going back there.
Yeah.
And so that's why, I think about the value of departments or individuals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there are definitely some pieces in there when you talk about that I think about where I think there were some profitability struggles for sure. There were some headcount and productivity struggles in there too. And, it just, there's a lot I could kind of break down, but I'm not gonna, other than the fact that, we're in a position, especially in the industry I was in and I'm still in terms of, logistics, transportation, supply chain, that the last 18 months have been absolutely brutal. You're talking about a recession that we haven't seen since deregulation happened in 1980.
Wow.
So it's definitely put a lot of pressure on making sure you're doing the right things, that you're trying. I mean, right now, it's not even people are trying to grow their business, they're trying to figure out how to not lose their rear completely in it. So, um, but these decisions is not just, it's not unique to the company I was at. There are companies making these decisions almost weekly right now. And in the last year, some pretty big hitters have kind of exited the market that I was in. So, it's one of those things that I agree. You're trying to figure out what kind of value can I add to any organization I am at, but to do it in a way that's consistent, right? To not, to figure out how to do it where you don't get tired, you don't let off the gas, you are continuing to drive forward no matter what, and not be satisfied with what you got, with what got you there.
So looking back on your experience, I know you want to get not talk about looking back, you want to look forward, but
Yeah.
just thinking through, maybe it wasn't about Dave Bennett. Maybe it was just about the department as a whole,
Yep.
or was it department or office?
Yeah, I mean, it was a division
The
that
division.
shed
Yeah.
some of its locations to, shed a lot of cost and become more profitable. And that is definitely something I had to battle through the last few weeks. Is at the end of the day, you know, I have a lot of friends there, and even the people that did this, I consider my friends, and were a very meaningful part of my story and my life the last few years that have been unfortunately harder than I wish they would have been, on the personal side of my life. But they were there for me through a lot of different difficult situations. So, I've had to cut to a point over the last few weeks where it's like, maybe the reason I'm frustrated with them is because I miss them.
Mm.
Maybe, they just had to make a really hard decision. And it really was not a personal thing for anybody, for everybody that was involved. And I think that's probably the case. And if that's the case, then again, it's another avenue to move into, away from being bitter
Yeah.
and toward becoming better, and just saying that,
Yeah.
hey, I wasn't in that room that had to make that decision. neither was anybody else. They were in that room that had to make that decision, and they're doing their job. That's why they get paid to do what they do, is to make the best decisions for the company, not for each individual person. And you can never make everybody happy. So you've got to do the best you can with what you got.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. And then, a lot of times, when we suffer rejection, it's all about us and we get internal, a weak channel, and we just stay there and stay stuck when the reality of it is, it really wasn't about you. Like in
Yeah.
this case, it was about a division,
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
a whole, not about
Yeah.
Dave Bennett as a man of God, as a person.
Yeah. It's not about you, but it feels very personal because we allow our jobs to become a very personal part of us, thus
Mhm.
the whole identity thing again.
Yeah.
So, I think if you're out there and you may have just lost your job, or you did 2 weeks ago, or you might tomorrow, I hope not, just understand that you can't sit in that seat of anger and bitterness long term. It just doesn't work. And if you do, it's going to wreak havoc on you for a long time. You've got to find a way to process it with people that you trust, allow them to push you, and then move forward into the next opportunity, because you don't know. I mean, the next opportunity could be awesome. And then you're like, gosh, if I wouldn't have gotten let go, I never would have found this. This is amazing. You know what I mean? Dude, it's like God's not calling audibles here. Like, he's not just figuring it out as he goes. I mean, he has a plan and he's making decisions. Again, it goes back to last week when Steve said, our responsibility is to be faithful. It's not to be perfect. It's to be faithful in that process. You know what I mean? And I think that, to me, again, is one of the things that rings true in this. Be faithful in the process. It's going to be okay. He's got you. He's going to pop open that door for you, and it's going to be super exciting. And that was one of the things in my post I talked about yesterday. Some of those people already have jobs, which I'm super pumped about, and they let me know, which is great. Some of those people are talking to companies that they never thought they'd get to talk to. And I said, hey, choose wisely. And others are still working on it. And I'm like, look, there's an opportunity coming around the corner. Do not give up. It is okay. This is going to be fine. Everybody is okay, even though it doesn't feel like it. And I'm so, Dave, preaching that the most to me more than anybody.
Yeah, it's good. I think too about the space of I have this vision from God and it's not working. I really feel like I know you and I have talked about I have more vision
Yep.
than I do have money.
Yep.
And
Yep.
that'd be an awesome workshop that we could do. But
It's pretty popular, I think, too.
yeah, like I have this vision. It's been sitting here. I know it's in my spirit, in my knower, that I need to do something with it, but
Yep.
nobody really cares or nobody's catching on to it. Why is this not working for me? It's a level of rejection, and your identity and really allowing that performance side of you drive your identity, which is a mistake. I love to look at organizations as a reflection of you. Like, your job is a reflection of you. It's certainly not who you are, because the reality is, Dave, you're a man of God. You
Yep.
are a father,
Yep.
right? You you just have so many things. You're an athlete. There's so many things that goes on with Dave Bennett, not just Dave Bennett, the producing job income guy who's a
Yeah.
robot who goes to work and makes money. That's not who any of us are,
Right.
um, in the image of God. And so, but it doesn't negate that it's not tough. I'm not trying to overshadow that. It's tough, man. It's hard. And
Yeah.
that's where, I think you got it spot on. It's like you live in faith, you're not in fear. In fact, it takes the same amount of energy to live in faith as it does fear.
Yeah.
And so which energy are you going to be in, a productive channel or a not productive channel? And
So
so,
let me ask you this, Dave, working on his doctorate, Jones.
yes, sir.
When you have a life situation like this that happens, how does that impact your mental preparation? What are some tools you use in this, man?
Well, many, many years ago, I made an affirmation card. And so I think, on one side, you've got the devil saying, you're a loser, you
Yep.
suck,
Yep.
nobody likes you, go die in a hole, right?
Yep.
And, and then on the other side, you've got
What
this
is wrong with
angel.
you?
What's wrong with you? What'd you do wrong? You was wrong again.
Exactly.
Haven't you learned?
Exactly.
So the devil's on the side just chirping away, and that's really that kind of that silent voice. And then you've got that other side of, where you've got this angel saying, no, I just don't believe that, man. Like, I'm a child of God, and I see myself differently outside of this job. So one of the tools, since you mentioned it, I am getting my doctorate in sport performance psychology. And so, doing self-talk is really powerful. And so you don't let that internal voice have authority in your life. And so I think, in fact, in Second Corinthians, I have it here, right here. 2 Corinthians 10:5, we demolish arguments and every idea that sets itself against the knowledge of God, and we take captive every thought and make it obedient to Christ. 2 Corinthians 10:5. So when you think about a thought that comes in, you have to be aware of it that comes in, that thought. And then you got to say, this is good or bad. And like, if the devil's on your shoulder chirping, you got to say no. And this is where my affirmation card comes in, and I say, you know what? I am abundantly blessed and walk in the favor of God, and everything I do touch prospers, good measure, pressed down, shaken together. I am the head, not the tail.
Yeah.
The prison door is open, my friend. What you doing in jail?
Right.
And so, like, having this affirmation of really who you are and allowing that affirmation to be your identity, not this silent voice. So, self-talk is one of the coping strategies to get you, on the trajectory of, what, I'm in a valley, but I'm not going to be here very long.
Yep.
And so to get you out of it. So it's super powerful. It's probably one of the oldest coping strategies out there, self-talk, but it works. And so if you don't have an affirmation card of what you want, make one and read it every day, 3 to 5 times. And if you want to amplify it, read it to yourself in the mirror. Like, watch yourself reading it. That will certainly, increase the believability. I believe that I'm abundantly blessed to walk in the favor of God. I really believe that. And I've got example after example of different stories in my life where, like, people told me no. And I'm like, yeah, I just don't know. One of them is my favorite. I don't know if I told you this story, but when I was in the Air Force, I was in Spangdahlem, Germany, Spangdahlem Air Base, Germany. And at the time, there wasn't enough housing. And so they were asking for families to move off base to fill out a form to basically get off base housing. And with off base housing, you get per diem per day, and you get your off base housing allowance plus your salary plus your military pay. And I was a single guy, so I went to my first shirt and I said, "Hey, I'd like to try to get off base housing." And he looked me in the face, Dave, and he said, "Airman Jones, the sun will turn blue before you get off base housing."
Such an encourager.
And I said, "Okay, well, can I fill out the form?" "You can fill out the form, but you ain't getting it." I'm like, "Okay."
So you're telling me there's a chance?
You're telling me there's a chance. And 2 weeks later, I got off base housing.
That's awesome.
And so, like, I don't, was that God? I believe it was some higher power that allowed that to go through, and it changed my life because I was on the hockey team there, with the Germans, and it just added all kinds of flexibility because we had this, like, time you had to be on and off the base kind of thing. You couldn't go in and out of the door, out of the gate or whatever. And so, just situations like that. Like, I believe I'm abundantly blessed to walk in the favor of God. I've had this affirmation for years, man. And so when I get hit with that, business wise, back in 2010, it hit 2008 was when it really hit the world. 2010, it hit us. And we do a lot of media buying here. And this is with Ion Media at the time. It was a different television network. They're not around anymore. But I owed $50,000 to them, and we had 90-day terms. And they called me and said, "Listen, we we're not extending terms anymore to certain companies. You're one of them. We need, and I'll forget this. I was driving from Dallas, Texas to San Antonio in a 12-passenger van because I wasn't smart enough to put in a rental reservation before then. Because I figured I'm going to Dallas, there'd be plenty of cars. Well, there wasn't. The only thing I could rent was a 12-passenger van, and I'm driving down the road, and the rep calls and says, "Hey, we need $50,000. Today's Wednesday. We need by Friday, or we're canceling all your contracts." And my contracts were like north of $300,000, which was nice income for back then, nice revenue. And I was like, okay, like, how am I going to work this out? I called a mentor, and the mentor said, "You know what, Dave?" He just laughed at me. I said, "Hey, can I borrow $50,000 for a couple months?" And he just laughed at me and said, "Davey, it's all gonna work out. You just gotta trust God." And I was like, "Yeah, yeah, but I need $50,000. This whole trust God thing, that's cool, but I need $50,000."
You'd be part of God's solution for me, would you please?
Yeah, exactly. And he said no. And I'm like, all right, I'm abundantly blessed, walk in the favor of God. Okay, Lord, how's this gonna work? And sure enough, the rep called me a couple of days later and said, "Hey, we'll work out terms, but you can't miss a payment." I'm like, okay. And I got with the bank and I figured it out and everything was fine. We worked it out. And so like, yeah, man, like the affirmation is big. I think when you speak what you want to exist, I'm not a name and claim it guy, but I am I believe this in my spirit guy. Like if you believe it, like the Bible talks about it, ask and you shall receive, knock and the door will be open to you. You know? Again, I'm not a big, like, name and claim it, but, like, I believe that, what we determine in our world, what we work towards, and what we believe can happen, can happen.
Yep.
That was a whole
Yeah.
lot of talking, man, like
Yeah. Well, no, but I love that. And you've got people that listen to that, they're like, dude, that's crazy. You can't just say it and it happens. And you have others that are probably our age and remember the old SNL deal with Stuart Smalley. I'm good enough. I'm smart
smart
enough.
enough.
And doggone it,
Doggone it,
people like
you like
me.
me.
And he would
Yeah,
say it in the mirror to himself.
yeah.
But there's some sort of, to your point, psychological benefit, and something just happens when you're able to believe it with everything you've got. You know what I
And
mean?
if
And
you've got the
speaking into
skills behind
existence.
it, it's not that big of a leap, I don't think, you know?
Yep,
Which you do.
exactly.
You have the
Yep.
skills. You're seasoned, man. You're
Yep.
competent. You're accountable. And so like we all are. Well, some of us.
Yeah, if you're on the short end of the stick, we'll hit that next week.
Yeah.
But no, yeah. So it's one of those things where you're right. It's a pretty uh intimate topic to talk about. Hey, I lost my job. But at the end of the day, I love it. I love what you said. It's not really about me. It's about the story that God's writing, both not only in my life, but in the lives of all these other people. And I got to believe that this was something that he allowed to happen that can give him glory and that will, better his kingdom. I mean, why would he doesn't allow things to happen that don't? Even some of the worst things that happen, there's a story in there somewhere that we don't see, and it's that idea of living by faith.
Yeah. Tell us one last story and then we'll shut it down. It was several years ago. We were vacationing in the Outer Banks and my wife was like, "Hey, let's go on this agricultural tour of the Outer Banks swamp." And I was like, "Yeah, that doesn't sound like fun at all." No thanks. And anyway, I went, of course. I went and
The
we're doing
swamp.
this tour and it's like literally in a swamp and there's this path and I'll never forget it. It actually changed my life. The tour lady was like, "Yeah, you see this dead tree over here?" And it was like this ugly looking tree coming out of the water. And she said, "This is gonna die, but everything that dies in here is replaced by life." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, like what needs to die in my life so that new life can come in?"
It's that pruning, man.
And it's so awesome to think about. I mean, it's kind of rudimentary, but like everything that dies, something has to die for life to happen. And so, what is dying in my life now? that something awesome is gonna grow for another new season. That's pretty cool to think about.
It is.
So you're not really like, to me, you're just pivoting. You're not starting over. You're just pivoting to something else that God has you doing for a season.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's pretty exciting, man. Pretty exciting.
So, I'm going to go ahead and land a plane here. I just really want to give special thanks out to our sponsor, M is Good. If you want to know more about M is Good, go to misgood.com. We think that the R7 is uncovering the secrets of success with some faith-based testimonies and the power of R7. And Dave, you've been an awesome, intimate, getting close to being my BFF. Not quite there, but like we're working on it, man. We're working on it.
Yeah.
So thanks for joining us. Remember, destiny awaits, but time does not, David Bennett.
There you go. Don't give up. Thanks, buddy.
Thanks again for joining us. I want to give special thanks to our sponsor, M is Good. Want to learn more about M is Good? Go to misgood.com. Join us again next week as we continue to uncover the secrets to success with faith-based testimonies and the power of R7. Remember, destiny awaits, but time does not.